In this episode of Haunted Cosmos, we talk about aliens and how we can best deport them.
Wrong aliens.
Oh no. This episode of Haunted Cosmos is brought to you by Mount Athos. Results, purity, and sustainability in every bottle. June 24th, 1947. Kenneth Arnold flies in a grid pattern over the wilderness around Mount Rainier in Washington state. His objective is to find a downed military aircraft so that rescue and cleanup efforts can begin. His eyes are pinned downwards, but during a hairpin turn to begin another sweep back the way he'd come, Arnold looks up ahead and sees 9 shimmering lights fast approaching. They turn on a dime perpendicular to him. He observes that all 9 lights move at supersonic speeds. July 7th, 1947. A rancher in Roswell, New Mexico calls local authorities to report a UFO crashed on his land. Both rancher and sheriff search for and find the downed craft. They agree to notify the local military installation, who promptly arrives at the ranch to collect the wreckage and take it to a secret location. September 12th, 1952. It is evening in Flatwoods, West Virginia. A group of local boys watch in awe as a bright object falls from the sky into some nearby woods. After enlisting the help of 2 adults, the group runs to investigate. Approaching the top of the hill, they recoil at a strong smell of acid. They lose visibility in a thick cloud of mist like wet smoke. Suddenly, a terrible figure approaches them. 12 feet tall, with a spade-shaped head and glowing red eyes. The matte metallic body hovers to the group with outstretched arms like claws. The group turns and runs wild through the night. The period beginning just after World War II saw the sharpest rise in UFO and alien encounters ever recorded. While this can be chalked up to any number of factors, there is one that is often overlooked, yet it stands out to me as among the most important. We men have been given leave to image God as those who take dominion over the earth. And while every man can and must do this in his own vocation, the most timeless picture of dominion is still farming. A man, with his God-given strength, wades into a patch of wild and wretched earth. He bends his back, sets his shoulder to the plow, and enlists the strength of creatures he has tamed. He grades the land, irrigates it, nourishes it. He tends his field. It is his. And if he is wise and faithful, it will be good to him. This relationship between man and soil is a fitting metaphor for creation's relation to God. More particularly, the land-farmer dynamic reflects God's dealings with time. Time, like everything except God himself, is a thing he made. It is the instrument he delights to use in displaying his glory. Time is the parchment upon which God writes the story of history. Time is the canvas upon which he paints his splendor. Time is a field where he plants seeds that one day bloom into his manifold wonders. Of course, a metaphor is only a metaphor, and this one falls short in countless ways. God is not subject to any force outside himself. In his governance of creation, he is absolutely sovereign. He hopes for nothing, but instead exercises complete benevolent dominion. Yet even as an imperfect picture, this is still a useful one, and there is one aspect I want to draw out before moving forward. If a farmer is wise, he lets his pastures undergo seasons of rest. The soil lies fallow or is seeded with cover crops to restore its strength. During these resting seasons, the farmer is hardly idle. He labors in the field, preparing it and building it up for future abundance. Yet the field itself seems quiet, even dull, with little of note happening above the soil. Time is much the same. There are seasons of time when the world shakes. Powers rise and fall. Nations go to war. Volcanoes erupt. Famine spreads. Tsunamis roar through islands. Whole decades are remembered for how the very foundations of the earth seem to tremble. But the inverse is also true. There are long stretches when little of global significance takes place. Not that nothing happens, but compared with times of upheaval, these years are like a field laying fallow, quietly feeding on its roots. After a few appetizers in the 19th century, the 20th century marked a true shift from rest to harvest. Beginning with the outbreak of World War I, the foundations of the earth shook, and by century's end, they had been nearly undone. In many ways, we're still living in the 20th century, in the long transition from pre-modern to postmodern. If this is so, then we should not be surprised to look back and see a torrent of things that seemed new rising up in those 150 years. New technologies, new temptations, new nations, new wars. Everything was new, and yet nothing was. There is nothing new under the sun. But much appeared new, including UFO sightings. Some may scoff at including them among the century's great events. I understand why, but I think such dismissal is a mistake. Consider, these were encounters with things whose earlier appearances had been nearly forgotten. Once the realm of kooks and cranks, they have since been carried into the mainstream, noted and even commented on by the US Pentagon. So here's my point. The post-World War II period saw a dramatic rise in UFO encounters. That fact should not surprise us. Not at all. Why? Because the field of time was ripe for new growth, a fresh harvest of chaos. But, and this is crucial, these sightings were not actually new. They were simply another sprout in the century and a half of newness in which they were planted. They were the fruit of a world prepared for the next stroke of sovereignty's pen. Kelly, Kentucky is an unincorporated community tucked away in the western corner of a flyover state. It sits in the middle of Christian County, about 8 miles from the county seat of Hopkinsville, also not a very big town. It's a nowhere neighborhood in a forgotten county of an oft-forgotten state. Generally speaking, there's nothing noteworthy about it, nothing exciting, nothing really special. In fact, the only reason our nation's so-called important people pay it any attention at all is because of its high rate of drug use, an issue that has, thankfully, seen some improvement in recent years. So there you have it, Kelly, Kentucky, a nothing place known only for its negative aspects and, at best, drawing a little bit of bigwig attention. That's all it has ever been, right? Well, not quite. You see, Kelly is still a small, unincorporated community today, still forgotten and overlooked, but not by everyone. For in the not-too-distant past, one strange event unfolded there, an event that etched Kelly's name alongside its unremarkable features onto the map of the world's strangest places. It was August 21st, 1955. Mrs. Glennie Lankford sat in her modest farmhouse off State Route 41 in Kelly. Twice married, once divorced, once widowed, her hardships had never managed to dampen her spirit for long. Even at 50, Glennie was a lively, bubbly woman of faith and gentle disposition. What's more, her marriages had been fruitful, and she never had to worry about being alone. On that August night, for example, Glennie's little farmhouse was crammed with 10 other people. There were her 2 eldest sons from her first marriage, Elmer and J.C. Sutton, each joined by his wife, Vera and Aline, and accompanied by a few friends, a man named O.P., a man named Billy Ray, and Billy Ray's wife, June. Then came Glennie's children from her second marriage, her son Lonnie and 2 daughters, Charlton and Mary. 11 people in total, family and friends gathered together under the care of the woman who bound them all. After dinner, the group split off. Some of the men and their wives played cards with the younger kids, while Glennie and the older folks sat reminiscing about old times. The summer heat had prompted open windows to draw in the evening breeze. Along with it came the steady southern chorus of cicadas. A storm had passed a few hours earlier, and the scent of fresh rain still lingered. It was, in every sense, an idyllic night. But the homestead was simple, and it was 1955. Indoor plumbing wasn't part of the picture. So when Billy Ray Taylor wanted water, he stepped outside with a bucket and made for the well a few yards away. As he filled it, he looked around. The sunset was nearly gone, the sky painted in radiant watercolors. It was marvelous, and so Billy Ray marveled. Then he noticed something. A brilliant streak of shimmering light cut across the sky, brighter than anything else, moving toward him. It zipped overhead with a strange sound, then disappeared beyond the field and into the trees. Billy Ray watched it slow to a stop and descend into a clearing. Strange beams of white, gold, and green shimmered through the branches, casting an eerie glow above the trees. It was 7 p.m. Billy Ray dropped the bucket and sprinted back inside with the news. One of those flying saucers, like the ones from Roswell, had just flown over the farm and landed in the woods. But everyone scoffed. Some mocked his poor eyesight. Others accused him of sneaking moonshine into Glennie's teetotaling household. Whatever their reason, no one believed him. Discouraged, Billy Ray didn't even return outside to look for the lights. He simply slumped into a chair and sulked for nearly an hour. But then, something happened that changed everything. The dogs began to bark. Glennie's sheepdogs, normally steady, were going mad. The sound wasn't ordinary barking either. It was frantic, furious, terrified. Elmer Sutton finally went to check, Billy Ray tagging nervously behind him. By now, the yard was cloaked in moonlight. Elmer stepped out just in time to see the dogs sprint from the opposite side of the house and dive beneath it, whimpering. Something had frightened them badly. Then Elmer and Billy Ray heard movement near the well. A bush rustled violently, as if something was forcing its way through. And then it appeared. A figure stepped from the brush, walking toward them with a steady, deliberate gait. It was unlike anything either man had ever seen, unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Just 4 feet tall, with a bulbous head and round, protruding eyes. Arms so long they nearly reached the ground, tipped with slender fingers of indeterminate length. Tall, pointed ears flapping faintly as it moved. No nose, only a slit of a mouth. Naked, yet featureless. Its skin was gray and glossy, reflecting silver in the moonlight, and it made no sound. The two men wasted no time. They ran back inside, ordered JC to grab the guns, and dug out boxes of ammunition. Classic America. JC armed himself with a single-shot 20-gauge. Elmer took the double-barreled 12-gauge, and Billy Ray settled for a 22 long rifle. Each man loaded up and posted at the door. They waited. Nothing. At last, Elmer eased the doorknob and nodded. They flung the door open and leapt out into the orange glow of the porch light. And there it was, the same creature. It moved toward them again, almost gliding across the ground, as if it had paused when they retreated inside and now resumed its approach. In the light, they could see it more clearly. Its body glowed faintly, translucent, as though lit from within. JC and Billy Ray fired first. The buckshot and 22 bullets struck it, but to no effect. The impacts rang out like shots against metal, and the creature only stumbled briefly before resuming its pace. Then Elmer fired the 12-gauge. This time the being toppled, hurled backward toward the trees by the force of the slug. But even so, it rose again, floating away into the darkness. Inside, Glennie scolded the men for firing at something they did not understand, but her words were drowned out by the grim realization that bullets seemed nearly useless. The children were rushed into the back room. The women hid behind couches, under tables, anywhere they could, while the men stood guard. And so the siege began. As the men stood vigilantly, the whole group whispered about what might happen next. Then, in the middle of one woman speaking, JC spotted another of the creatures, or perhaps the same one, peering its monstrous face through a living room window. And remember, most of those windows were open. He rushed forward, took aim, and fired through the bug screen at near point-blank range. Billy Ray followed with a shot of his own, and the creature reeled backward. It fell into the darkness out of sight, though the rustling grass betrayed that it was still alive. In another sortie, the men rushed back out the door to chase it down, hoping to end this strange assault. But just as Billy Ray stepped out from beneath the small porch awning, 3 of the women screamed in horror. A long, inhuman hand had reached down from the roof and tangled in his hair. The women kept shrieking while Aline yanked Billy Ray backward by his shirt. Elmer spun around, raised his 12-gauge, and fired. He watched the thing's silhouette roll frantically across the roof before disappearing over the other side. In the flood of action, Billy Ray darted past Elmer and into the yard's edge of light. There he saw another silvery creature clambering up a maple tree. He called the boys, and all 3 blasted it with a volley of fire. They heard the metallic impacts and waited for the thing to fall, but it didn't. Instead, it floated down almost casually and then drifted away into the darkness. Billy Ray and JC gave chase for a short distance. While they were gone, Elmer shot another creature as it peered around the side of the house. He watched it fall to the ground, lying flat for a moment, before springing back up and drifting off as though carried by the wind. About 20 minutes later, another creature scrambled onto the roof. Elmer and Billy Ray both fired at it multiple times, but again to no effect. The being floated down off the roof and behind a fence some 40 feet from the house. Elmer shot again, and it vanished into the woods. After this, things fell quiet for a while. The men regrouped inside to assess their situation. The women were terrified, the children frantic, the ammo nearly gone, and what ammo they had seemed to do little more than annoy their attackers anyway. The stress was overwhelming. Then came new interruptions. The sound of scraping metal and heavy thuds, as if bodies were slamming against the walls. They were in over their heads, and they knew it. Glennie screamed, pointing out the window at another creature approaching the door. Billy Ray flung it open and fired until the being shrank away. So it went on for hours. An alien would appear at a window, a door, or in the yard. The men would fire until it retreated, then another would take its place. They estimated there might be as many as 15 creatures, or even as few as 3. Either way, the number hardly mattered. They knew they were running out of time. Finally, at 11 p.m., after 3 hours of siege, the men hurried the women and children into the trucks. In a line, they tore down the dirt road toward the nearest police station, 8 miles away in Hopkinsville. The drive was long enough to quiet the children's screams, but short enough that the terror still hung thick. When they arrived, the men charged through the station doors demanding to speak with officers, and they were, of course, obliged. The officers listened, and though they doubted some of the details, they overall believed the family. 11 people telling the exact same story, that was rare in even the clearest of cases. Within 45 minutes, more officers, investigators, and even 4 military police from nearby Fort Campbell had joined in. With this force in tow, the family returned to Glennie's farmhouse. They arrived by now at about 12:30 a.m. The swelling team of investigators and newsmen fell upon the house, searching for any sign of extraterrestrial presence. They found damage everywhere. Bullet holes peppered the walls and windows, shell casings scattered about, broken glass. It was a mess. But there was no trace of the alien attackers, except for one unsettling discovery. Police Chief Russell Greenwell, walking the fence line, found a strange fluid staining the grass. It shimmered with a polychromatic glow, sparkling in the moonlight. Greenwell later recalled thinking it was stunningly beautiful. He assumed it must be the blood of the creatures, but instead of collecting a sample, he left it there, intending to return the next morning. That chance, unfortunately, never came. After 90 minutes of searching, the circus of policemen and reporters cleared out empty-handed. The family, discouraged that there were so few witnesses to their ordeal, were nevertheless relieved that the attack seemed to have ended. By 2:30 a.m., they boarded up what they could and attempted to sleep. For a time, all was quiet. But then, the nightmare resumed. Glennie Langford was startled from light sleep by the sound of scratching on the roof. She tiptoed to her door and whispered to the living room to see if anyone else was awake. Elmer was. He hadn't slept a wink and was standing guard with his shotgun. Hearing her call, he rushed to her room, arriving just as Glennie stared out her window at the same terrible sight as before. The creature stood there, its metallic skin glowing, strangely graceful despite its horror. Its eerie serenity tugged at Glennie's conscience, and she pleaded with her son not to harm it. But Elmer didn't listen. He fired without hesitation. The shotgun blast shattered the window, waking the rest of the house, and the creature reeled backward into the yard before vanishing once again into the darkness. For the following hours, the ordeal repeated itself. One alien on the roof, another at the window, another at the door. The men would charge out to fire before retreating to reload. It was a grueling and hopeless cycle, a Sisyphean task. And yet, despite their helplessness, the family was never harmed. The creatures never pressed their advantage, never entered the home, never laid a hand on anyone. Remarkably, the family even escaped harm from their own wild gunfire in the night. Finally, at 5:15 a.m., it ended. No more scratching, No more floating shapes in the yard. No more glowing visitors from other worlds. The siege was over. They never returned. The Langfords and Suttons were left with a wrecked home and tired eyes full of stress and a new kind of fear. When dawn finally came, police returned to search the property again, and again, nothing was found. Chief Greenwell went back to the fence to collect the oozy, glowing sludge he noticed the night before, but as was alluded to earlier, it was somehow gone. Thus, the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter came to a close in that quiet corner of Kentucky. But its memory has lingered on as one of the most unusual otherworldly encounters ever documented. It leaves a strange taste in the mind of those who hear it. Why did the creatures not attack when attacked? Why were they so curious about the house? Why that particular house and those particular people? Was it just random? Was it mass hysteria from 11 rural folk who all thought they saw the same thing, but who actually all saw nothing at all? Was it drunkenness? Was it something else? But really, these hypotheses are unlikely. The family encountered something that night, something unknown and unlooked for. They were just lucky it wasn't worse than it was. But there are other stories that don't end so neatly. Other stories that pose more serious and more dreadful questions even. And there is one story that introduces these questions forcefully. The story of Kelly Cahill. In 1993, Kelly Cahill and her husband were driving home from a friend's house. It was past midnight. The couple's 3 children slept in the back of the car. Kelly, still awake in the passenger seat, perked up when she saw a strange bright light above the road far ahead of them. She asked her husband if he could see it, and he could. It was a ways away, but Kelly could discern its shape, like a sphere flattened on the top and bottom. She described it later as a donut without any hole. As they sped toward it, Kelly saw that it was lit from inside and the light was escaping through 3 big windows that covered most of the side facing her. She assumed the opposite side contained similar windows. It glowed a vivid orange. The car descended a hill which took the object out of view, and when they crested the next hill, it was gone. A few minutes later, though, they saw the same object again. This time, it was hovering about 20 feet above a paddock off the road's shoulder. In the middle of Kelly commenting on it to her husband, the whole family's world was cut off. Like a movie skipping ahead in time in a single frame, Kelly suddenly found herself standing in the grass next to the paddock. One of her hands rested on the rough wooden fence. She turned back and saw her car stopped with no lights on and the engine off. Her husband was fast asleep in the driver's seat. She could see him through the passenger door left open. She could not see the children. Oddly, at the time, this didn't worry her. Kelly turned back and looked straight ahead. The night was a warm blue. Layers of thin fog rose from the ground and gave the world an almost dreamlike air. She felt her skin react to a breeze blowing in from the east. The orange glow grabbed her attention again, and she turned her face upwards. There was the strange craft floating silently. In another cut of frame, she opened her eyes to see 3 very tall beings standing before her. The fence separated them. The beings were thin and robed in black. She could not see their faces, but she was mesmerized by their luminous red eyes. Those eyes studied her, and she knew them in that moment to be evil. Yet still, she was spellbound and couldn't run, couldn't do anything. Seconds passed in silence and stillness until, to Kelly's horror, she heard a distorted voice in her head, which she assumed to belong to the beings. It said, "Let us kill them all." Her breathing quickened in fear and a desire to protect her children. She strained to turn and run and wake her husband, but an invisible force knocked the wind out of her and sent her falling hard to the ground instead. When she looked back up, the beings and the craft had vanished. She slowly rose to her feet and was immediately sore all over. She limped to the car and climbed in. When she shut the door, her husband woke and asked her what happened. She replied that she didn't know, but wished to get home quickly. He agreed and turned the engine over. They drove into the night and arrived home safely soon thereafter. In the following days and weeks, a triangular scar developed on Kelly's stomach. She experienced sleep paralysis episodes wherein the same cloaked and red-eyed monsters tormented her and questioned her. They filled her mind with terrible thoughts of violence that she labored to forget. Then, like a switch being flipped, it all stopped. She never saw them again, waking or sleeping. All that remained to remind her of its reality happening was the scar. Her case remains one of the most unsettling in the world's history. Even still, it is far from the most unsettling accounts we have for you today. Join us in this episode of Haunted Cosmos as we tell you of terrors from the heavens and the Lord who has victory over them all.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Haunted Cosmos. My name is Ben Garrett. I am happy to be here with all of you and with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brian Sauvé.
We are so back. We are vintage Haunted Cosmos. Aliens are abducting people.
Yeah.
They are strangely bulletproof. They are oozing multicolored phantasmic blood that disappears. People are having demon aliens talking their head about how they're going to kill everybody. We're back.
We'll find, crab clawed.
Okay.
And really into fishing.
Haunted Cosmos has investigated the subject and determined that it was demons.
This is a self-serving episode. All right. If you've ever, if you've been listening to Haunted Cosmos for a while, then you've heard season 1, episode 10 on evangelistic aliens.
Yeah.
And you know exactly where we stand. And I have news for you. We're not doing this episode because we changed our minds at all.
No.
We're doing this episode to further prove our point that the aliens are demons.
The aliens are literally demons, people. Don't get in their saucers. Call upon the name of the Lord if they pull any of their hijinks. You see a UFO in the distance. You see a UFO coming down off of Skinwalker Ranch, off the Mesa.
Eyes in the sky.
Eyes in the sky. You see UAP. What you need to do is grab Thomas Winterton and call upon the name of the Lord.
If Thomas Winterton and I go over to Mesa here on Skinwalker Ranch, you better believe that what we're going over there to investigate is demonic activity and nothing else.
Here's my favorite part. To just bring all of the Haunted Cosmos season 1 insider baseball to a perfect loop here is that if Dragon were there in the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, nothing different would have happened than what happened. He would have been like, finally.
Except he would have at multiple times, totally unprovoked, reminded people not to dig.
Stop. If anybody's digging, you are off the ranch. This is somehow my call.
No one even mentioned digging.
No, people are like,
just
we weren't going to dig.
No, his accent's so weird when he says it too. I absolutely love it. No digging. He suddenly becomes a Westerner.
In the most recent season of Skinwalker, there's no dragon.
I heard about that.
Yeah, I think he's doing some other spin-off show or
That's
something.
crazy to me.
It's going to be called Dragon's Digs. And he's an archaeologist.
It's going to be
he
called
reforms his ways.
The Dragon Cave.
And now he's all about digging.
The Dragon Cave.
The Dragon Cave.
Just goes around digging caves.
Yes. Dude.
No,
well,
Dragon.
Hey, welcome.
All right, we can move on.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to this episode of Haunted Cosmos. Man, are we glad that you're here for season 6, episode 3. You guys, OG, been here since season 1. You appreciated everything that we just did. New listeners, maybe not so much, but you know what? You'll learn to love us.
Yeah, new listeners, you probably already left. Thanks for being here while you were, though.
Thanks for trying.
We have been in studio for quite a while already this morning.
Yeah.
Brian read a lengthy cold open that y'all just listened to. And then Brian and I both joined together in annoying the ever-living crap out of Mr. Evanescence, who is just working hard.
He's trying to get us to record the episode, and we're doing this, but there's actually no point. There's not even a camera.
No.
By the way, this is not an act. This is how we are all the time.
And you may be tempted to think, wow, that sounds fun. No. You'd be wrong. It's fun for us.
You'd be wrong.
It's fun for almost no one else, except for our wives sometimes and our friends when they're in a good mood.
All of our friends appreciate it without exception.
All the time.
All the time.
Okay. Hey, before we get into the meat of the show, I just want to give a quick plug for Patreon.
Yeah.
If you like this content and you want it early and ad-free, then you can go over to Patreon, click on one of those top 2 tiers, and you will get all of our main shows early and ad-free. And then all of the tiers of Patreon get access to our weekly exclusive show, The Dusty Tome, that is only for them. And it's story-driven, written by me, releases weekly. We also do monthly Q&As there as well. And so you can...
live stream Q&As now.
Really?
Yeah, dude. They can go there and ask us questions.
Great. I didn't know that we were doing monthly live streams.
Dude, it's awesome.
Hey,
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I think we are.
I think that, but hey.
No, we are. We are. I talked to Martina McBride about it.
Thanks for including me in that discussion because I'm the one doing it.
It's going to be awesome.
Hey, this is great.
Too.
Oh, you're going to be there too?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Hey, this is great. Brian's going to be there
I'm going to be there. It's going to be amazing.
Join Patreon. You can find links for that in the description, or you can just go to patreon.com/HauntedCosmos.
Yeah. And we're going to pick 5 people who sign up today only, the day this episode releases publicly. And we're going to be sending them a free copy of our book, a signed copy of our book. But there's going to be even an extra for one of those people. We are going to give them, they're going to be immortalized in Haunted Cosmos history.
Yeah.
Because if you look over Ben's right shoulder right now,
zoom in right here,
you will see a glimmering copy behind a real oil lamp, by the way, wildly dangerous. The back of this book is actually burned because of it.
That is a real flame. Okay.
Yeah, look at the back of the book. Hold it up. You see the scar? There you go. Okay, now open to the front matters.
Okay, to make you realize this is a very special book, we have written a special note that says this copy featured on season 6, episode 3. We don't know the title yet at the time of recording of Haunted Cosmos. ... I promise. I signed my name in print. Brian and I will both sign it on camera with our John Hancocks. Brian first. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah.
Because you can't read our signatures at all.
Okay, and now here's me. And I'm gonna
You're going to do it that way? That's a bold move.
Boom.
So good. So you're going to get this. One of those lucky listeners is going to get this exact copy. Let's stick it back on the shelf.
For now, I'm going to put it back up on the shelf. But this is a piece of the Haunted Cosmos set. This is worth probably tens of millions of dollars.
Someday. Yeah. Well, guys, do we have any other housekeeping or things like that? Other than to say thanks for everybody who made the month of October so much fun with the Graveyard Shift. If you didn't listen to those, go check them out in our feed on our YouTube channel. We did interviews with folks, real stories. That was so much fun. One every week in October. Man.
We said it then, we'll say it again now. If you liked that kind of content, if you like that style, let us know and we'll try to do as much of it as we can because we had a lot of fun.
We did.
Yeah.
And you can send us your stories if you want to be featured on a future Graveyard Shift. Send us your stories to stories@hauntedcosmos or stories@thehauntedcosmos.com. And we'll stick that up if I got it wrong. I think that's right. But
and here's the thing. You don't have to zhuzh it up and like write it, unless you just want to, you can. But you don't have to do that. You can just write like quick synopsis of the story.
Yeah.
And then if we are interested, we'll get back in touch with you. So
yeah, no fiction. Make sure it really happened.
No Dusty Tome style, like we're going to stretch
this. Is a poem about something that wouldn't it be cool if it had happened?
Right. No, but that actually happened though.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Kelly Hopkinsville for a minute, because this is one of the most iconic stories, one of the most debated, argued about alleged alien encounter stories in American history for sure, and in UFO lore in general. Like most people who know anything about UAP, UFO stuff, they know about Kelly Hopkinsville and have theories, and there's all sorts of debates. Like people have gone, this is how deep it goes. People have actually gone back and looked at the property map and where the boy was who went outside and first saw the thing in the sky. Billy Ray, and said, was the moon in exactly the location that they said it was?
Wow.
That he said it was. Like they've tested all these little details of the story. And it remains, even after all of this investigation, kind of like the Patterson-Gimlin film, where the more people have dug into it, the more it just still remains an enigma of like, it's either that it's totally true or all of them agreed and never wavered in making up this story, bringing huge ridicule and shame upon themselves, by the way. It was like bumpkin, liar, redneck, grifter, hicks.
Like stupid.
They didn't profit from it. They didn't go like make a film from this. It wasn't like anything like that. You kind of land on one of those two things. Either it really happened basically the way they said within the normal eyewitness, getting some details mixed up, or they totally made it up. There is no skeptical, like maybe they saw the planet Venus.
Right. Reason being.
Or it was a sandhill crane.
Or I guess, it was a barn owl.
And they just kept shooting it.
and the owl's like,
Stop. My nest is on your roof.
Please stop. With like a 22 also, so it just hurts. It doesn't kill him, it just hurts. Part of the reason why it has to just be one or the other is because not only the number of witnesses, but the nature of the witnesses.
Yeah.
All right. Because a lot of people say like, oh, well, they're uneducated hicks, or they were. And yeah, I get that, but that kind of goes both ways. Like if you're an uneducated hick, then what are the odds you're going to have this mastermind plan to deceive everyone?
Right.
And remain consistent for amongst 11
decades
people of totally different ages. Yeah. Some of them not even in your family. So it's not like, oh, we need to, let's benefit the family by making us popular. And some of them were like young kids.
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 years old.
Young kids are notoriously good at sticking with complicated stories under many retellings.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is young kids are notoriously great at not telling the truth. Great at, one of their top 5 skills.
Do not tell mom what I got her for Christmas. And then that night at dinner, Mom, I'm not supposed to tell you what Dad got you for Christmas, but we went to Farce Jewelry today. But I won't tell you what it is. It's a necklace. I'm not going to tell you what kind. It's made out of gold.
I look at my 2-year-old
and you're like,
his pants are entirely wet. Entirely wet. And I say, buddy, did you pee your pants? And then I say, and he's thinking, and I say, don't lie to me.
No thinking.
Did you pee your pants? And he says, no. Okay, but they're not good at sticking to the lie. That's what I was going to say.
They're just, there's a lot that goes into the story that makes you think. I think broadly what they described probably happened. So the question is, what?
Okay,
the question is lowercase WT question mark.
Yeah. Another common objection is, before we get into what actually was this thing, is alcohol. Were they all? Were they all loaded on moonshine?
Right.
The answer is a resounding, most likely not.
I like that you said resounding, most likely not.
Well, the reason is because I guess you could always say
we don't have a blood alcohol test that they did.
Maybe some of the guys were sneaking moonshine, but Glennie,
the matriarch.
Yeah, the matriarch. She was beloved by the family, and she also was a teetotaler.
Oh, okay.
She never had a sip of alcohol her whole adult life.
Yeah.
And it was the commonly held belief amongst the rest of the town and in the family was that when you go over to Glennie's house, you respect Glennie by not drinking.
Yeah.
You don't come drunk and you don't bring any drink there to sneak.
Yeah.
Because she'll beat you with a sandal,
Right.
And you love Glennie, you want to stay there, so you just respect her and don't drink. So it's it would be a crazy fringe case if any of them had been drinking that night.
And also then they go to law enforcement, and this part's all documented. They get there, 12:30, I think it was. Or no, they got there before 12:30, and then they were back by 12:30.
Law enforcement didn't smell any alcohol.
Yeah, law enforcement is used to dealing with drunks.
Now, they could have been drunk. Also,
everyone's drunk. Everyone in Hopkinsville,
it's Kentucky.
In Kelly, they're done. They're just hammered.
The family was drunk. The policemen were high.
Okay, kids.
Ask your parents what that means.
Don't think it's cool to do alcohol. First of all,
do you think it? I was about to make a deep cut office reference, but it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So anyway, these creatures. Let's talk a little bit about the creatures.
Yeah, the first thing that really comes to mind for me is that they must have been using code NCP20 to get 20% off of this goat protein powder from Mount Athos Performance, because you can shoot if you use this. Our lawyers say that this is not actually true. You may be able to take a 12 gauge shotgun to the chest and then not use it. And the other thing is that I think the aliens cleaned up the scene using Indigo Sundry soap, because all of the blood was gone, and we know that this great seed oil free soap is probably the only way that they had done that.
The lawyers do say that the lawyers do say that I can say this, that is 100% factual. That Indigo Sundry soap will clean up demon blood that spills on grass.
Our patrons right now watching this episode early and ad free are like, ad free is a stretch. That was all satire. Okay. No, but the fact that the craziest part about this to me is that I am persuaded that a lot of these events probably happened, that they weren't all making it up, that it's not all, people do lie, but they don't only lie. And they didn't really benefit from this in any way other than they actually experienced a lot of hatred,
a lot of
and
backlash,
reviling, and like interest. They're sick of talking about it. The family, Billy Ray was still alive, at least last I heard, not long ago. Really? And he was still like, people are still asking him for interviews to this day. And he's probably like, I'm tired, boss, but it's the bulletproofness. It's the floating off.
Yeah.
After they get shot. Like
the thing that always gets me, we'll actually see this in some of the other stories in the episode, is like they are trying to look human-ish.
Kind of.
But they're way off. It's like
their
a
fingers,
kid drawing a picture of a horse.
Their fingers are like Ben wishes that he had those fingers, long and slender.
Just two fingers. Yeah. But the walking, they don't actually walk.
They're like, I'm walking, but you're just floating. You're not walking.
Legs, but I'm walking. It's like they're on a treadmill.
Yeah, they're just like here's my theory. Because unlike a lot of the UFO, even the alien stuff we're going to talk about later in this episode, where it's like, oh, they're demons.
Yeah, like that's
where
terrifying.
It's so obvious. Like they're preaching another gospel. They're like telling alternate timelines about Jesus.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But this one, it just seems perplexing. Like, what are they up to if it is demons? But here's my theory. Do you think about this time period? Coming out of World War II, like you mentioned the cold open, we got all this like exploding UFO stuff going on. And it's at a time when people are in this huge technological boom, even related to the technological investigation and invention of World War II.
Yeah.
We have an obsession with technology, space. The space race is going to start with the Soviet Union soon.
Science fiction is like a new genre.
At its peak. And it seems to me, not its peak, but I mean, it's exploding. It's like right there. All of this is happening in this time period. And it would make sense to me if I were Wormtongue, or if I were, I'm sorry, I meant Screwtape. If I were Screwtape and the demons, Wormtongue's kind of a demon. If I was that in their councils, and I was like, what is the thing we could do right now to turn everybody away from, to continue the dissolution of the Christian bonds of the nation and all these things? Oh, I know what I would do. Let me convince them that human life is not special in any way, that there's extraterrestrial life out there. It's intelligent, it's humanoid, it's evolved slightly differently from them. But look, it's just yet another evolutionary biology cope. Like all this stuff, they're coming here with advanced technology. They will be our saviors through technological means. And if we could get their 0-point energy and all this stuff, then we could ascend to the stars and maybe upload ourselves to the cloud and become immortal digital creatures. Like all of this stuff is related to the allegedly extraterrestrial phenomena.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, because when you hear the story and you're like, it seems a little clunky.
Yeah, like what was the goal?
What was the point?
What were they trying to do?
They just kept like floating.
They were floating.
Generally, dude,
getting shot in the face.
It's like, it reminds me of like RuneScape or something.
Like when early
the little
video
Sims are like clipping and stuff, and they're just floating. So they're just floating generally close to the house.
For looking in the window.
These young men are coming out with 22s, just shooting wildly into the night.
It's the most American response, like in Europe.
So anyway, I started blasting.
Europeans see this and like, I'm going to do a British accent. No, let's do a French. Hello, why don't you come into my villa and I will give you some tea, or
Oh, we invited the aliens inside to the hot tub.
We had some
chocolate, smoked cigarette, and then we went.
We had some schnitzel.
So I totally lost my train of thought.
And then, but America, we see them in the distance, no communication, no sign of a threat.
We're like just a silhouette against a light, and they're like, that shape, I don't recognize it. Boom, boom, boom.
I don't appreciate that shape coming on my land.
Yeah.
Capital punishment.
No warning.
So anyway, I started blasting.
No warning.
That is America. If that's not what makes America great right there,
I'm so
then
glad.
what is?
I am so happy to be American.
And
we are simply the cool.
American.
Like our vibe is cooler than ever.
There is.
Okay. Yeah. What I was saying though was it seems a little clunky, a little like like the aliens almost seem childish,
right,
and dumb.
Yeah.
They're just doing this thing. So what's the point of that? Well, there's a few things you have to remember. One, this was the first encounter of its type that's ever recorded,
right, in
modern history. Okay, and it was at a time, to your point, where technology was just starting its kind of exponential, like hypotonic curve up, and so it was still a very advanced, a very strange, a very uncanny encounter at the time. compared to sci-fi movies today, it seems dumb. Then it was very strange. The other thing, though, is like, look at the subtlety of they almost seem innocent. They almost seem like victims in the story.
Exactly.
And so the subtlety of the messaging is we're just like a happy-go-lucky, like peaceful little life form.
And we're still going to be peaceful to you even after you blast us.
Exactly. And so the subtle messaging is we're just a happy-go-lucky life form. We're like animals, you know? Would you harm a little cat or a bunny? And then also the difference is we're super mega advanced technologically. So you should want to be like us.
And the implication
Because of the implication.
is that they could have destroyed these people at any time. I mean, if you have the technology to take a 12 gauge round to the face and
simply
interstellar travel
and then fall over and then get back up and just float away to a fence.
Okay, you have the ability to kill 11 rednecks at that point.
Yeah. 3 of whom are children.
And they have the whole arsenal of the redneck, which is
a 22 rifle,
22, a shotgun,
a single shot 20 gauge. Okay.
So it's a break.
It's a break barrel, one shot, and then it's a double shot 12 gauge.
Wow.
So like they're
not even a pump action.
Dude, they're not going out there. It's not like the guy that killed the bear in his house the other day in Colorado.
Our guy.
Like he mag dumps into a bear that's in his kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, guy, 7 rounds to the bear in his house, didn't miss with any of them in the dark. In his underwear.
3 seconds.
Unbelievable level of let's flip and go.
Those aliens are lucky they didn't go to that.
I want to personally invite that guy onto the Haunted Cosmos if he's ever in this basement.
He's going to be here on Monday.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So
as we record this.
Yeah. Anyway,
the mysterious killing of the bear.
So like to your point about like if it is demons, you know why aren't they more terrifying? Why aren't they more overt with their message? Well, because it's the art of subtlety.
That's right.
They've done this before.
Yeah, they know their business.
Now,
that's why but they didn't know about us.
Right.
They didn't know that we were going to come along, God's silliest soldiers, and unmask them.
Yeah. But then we see kind of the evolution of...
It took 80 years, but we're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We see kind of the evolution. There's that very subtle messaging.
Yeah.
It's almost playful in a way.
Yeah.
To then Kelly Cahill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Kelly Cahill.
And Kelly Cahill is just terrifying. Yeah. I want you to put yourself there.
I have a hard time. Like it's so terrifying.
It's really, really strange. You know, you're just like driving along. Oh, weird craft. You lose it over the hill, whatever. Next thing you know clip into the back rooms and you're in the upside down standing by this like UFO and there's these 3 beings. You turn around. Oh, your family, they're all sedated.
Yeah.
Your kids are in the back. And then the alien telepathically lets you overhear the conversation where they're saying like, hey guys, you know what we should do?
Let's kill them all.
Let's kill all of them. You try to run, you get knocked to the ground by an invisible force, totally subdued, and then the aliens fly away. It's almost like they're just flexing on you. Yeah, we could do this if we wanted to.
Let me speak directly to Gen Alpha for a second and just say all that mad skibbity.
Dude, Skibbity, Ohio toilet. Am I right? Thanks.
I have no idea. Evanescence is shaking his head in absolute disgust.
I don't know what I said.
And you know what? He was so real for that.
I don't know what I said, but I know that I said something.
But we said something.
But you see how there's like different, they're using the same general like mask, but they're still coming at the deception from different angles. You know, one of them is very terrifying.
Again, like you have the choice between they're making it all up or it pretty much happened what they said. There's just no skeptical explanation of like this happening, even when it comes to there's a mental breakdown of some sort because other people are involved and those tend to not be group.
So I do have some other details though. I'm just going to read these from Grok.
Yeah, let's
if everyone's cool with that.
I am cool with that.
So the one thing is that there was an element of missing time.
Yes.
Okay, so Kelly and her husband both expected to be home around 11:45 p.m. Instead, they got home at 2:30 a.m.
Not an amount of time that you can not notice going by.
Yeah, and
normally.
The encounter, according to Kelly, because she was the only one that was sort of like conscious for the encounter.
Yeah.
It didn't take an hour. You know, it was like a 5-minute thing.
Oh yeah, what she remembers.
Yeah, what she remembers was very short. So that kind of gets into the screen skipping.
There's hard cuts.
There was a hard cut where they have no memory.
The timeline of the video was just cut, spliced, and then you wake up somewhere else.
Perhaps the most compelling piece of outside evidence in this case is that there was another vehicle that they remember seeing down the road. Kelly remembers seeing this other vehicle down the road during the encounter.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was driving or still, and it was driven by a guy named John Auchettle. Sorry, definitely mispronounced that. And he actually reported a nearly identical experience.
Really?
So it was him with another group of people. They saw a similar style UFO with same colored lights and everything. They experienced missing time. They encountered similar looking beings, and they said that there was a feeling of dread.
Okay.
It was so. And here's the thing. Kelly put she remembered seeing this car down the road. So she puts an ad out in the newspaper saying, "Can I talk to the guy who is driving this car at this time on this date?"
Yeah.
He didn't know that it was about a UFO thing.
Okay.
So he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll respond to this ad or whatever." And Kelly is just asking him like, "Do you remember anything weird from that night?"
Yeah.
And he tells her this whole experience, and it matches up perfectly with her own. So it wasn't like leading or anything like that.
It reminds me of the sewing machine salesman in the Point Pleasant Mothman encounters, who has the encounter with Indrid Cold along the road.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all clustered with this stuff. And at the time, especially early in the flap, not many people knew about the other elements.
Yeah, so the guy who met Indrid Cold was not aware of the Mothman stuff.
No, he didn't even know about it.
In Point Pleasant. It took John Keel to really start connecting those things.
And then it was like, wait, you saw the, and it's also like the type of thing at that point where if there was a story about a cryptid that looks like a Mothman being sighted at this National Guard observatory and then other sightings, and you were going to try to get in on that, you wouldn't make up a story about a shiny, suited, weirdly smiling, telepathically communicating alien named Indrid Cold.
Totally different.
Talking to you about what you call that a city. We call that a gathering.
Whose UFO descended like in front of you.
In the road.
On the, it wasn't a cryptid.
Just want to talk to you.
Hello. Dude, Indrid Cold, one of the creepiest things.
This is not exactly like that, but there's in multiple independent experiences. That's weird.
I think that's a really good
Strange.
point. There was some physical evidence. Investigators found magnetic anomalies in soil samples from the encounter site.
Common.
Dragon vindicated. Don't dig.
Don't dig.
And then there was damaged vegetation and unusual chemical compounds also in the soil. Just a little bit weird. The case was investigated by this Australian group. All this took place in Australia, called the Phenomena Research Group, which I love that. Like it could be literally anything.
Everything, any phenomena.
Everything is phenomena.
That's true. This is phenomena.
Yeah, right, exactly. Here. So they went and investigated the site. They talked to Kelly. They talked to that other guy. And they basically found, after a 300-page report that was never released, they found that it was one of the more compelling cases of UFO encounters and alien encounters in Australian history, at least.
Yeah.
Kelly Cahill eventually became a relatively public figure. She started doing interviews. She didn't deny any interviews. Right. She didn't go seek them out, but if people asked her, she was willing to do it.
Yeah.
So, and then she eventually did write a book called Encounter, which detailed her experience. It sold out quickly. But along with this, she faced a significant amount of ridicule. So what that included was her husband kind of being shamed along with her, because he was basically like, I didn't see the same thing because I literally have no memory of that drive at all. Like I was totally knocked out.
His evidence is the evidence of absence.
He saw the UFO that first time they were coming up over that hill. He saw the UFO, but he didn't see it again after that. But he also had the missing time. So it wasn't that he experienced nothing. It was just like, I think that my wife is a trustworthy witness.
Yeah.
And I was completely out. So I'm willing to defer to what she's saying. So kind of all these things come around and you really start to get a sense that this wasn't a crackpot story invented by some lady who's not trustworthy. It was something weird that happened to not only them, but a whole other group of people in a whole other car on the same night with a similar witness. And it leaves you thinking they saw and experienced something.
Right.
That was totally outside the normal realm of life.
Yeah, and again, it's like, oh, what would this time? Pretty straightforward. What would a demon want to do?
Yeah.
Again, continue to underscore this theme of humanity is not special, Earth is not special. There's extraterrestrial life that's highly advanced.
But this one,
malevolent.
But this one, because of the flex mode, you know, if there was someone who wasn't spiritually prepared for this, they may be tempted to start saying, well, I should appease those beings.
Yes.
For the sake of my children.
Yeah.
I don't want my children to be harmed. So if they tell me to do something,
I should do it.
It's like it's like the mafia. You know, if they come around your block and they start saying, hey, I need you to, you know, look the other way when you see this guy come in next week.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you know, maybe something happens to your wife or your kid.
Maybe your warehouse has a fire.
And all they're saying is look the other way. And you're like, you're pulling my leg. I guess I'll look the other way. You know?
Yeah. And
aliens
these were probably
are the cosmic mob as well.
I think it's interesting that you do see in the alien world, it again feeds right into this theory of cosmic evolution and all of these beings. You have different races. You have like, oh, these guys are from Alpha Centauri and these guys are from over here.
The Pleiades.
We've got the insectoid creatures. We've got the little gray men who are kind of like drones.
The mantis men.
We've got the more humanoid, seemingly higher intelligent creatures. We've got all of these different cast of characters. And if you were going to say there is sentient advanced life on other planets and they evolved there and all this is true and there's no God and all this stuff, then you would of course come up with some that were kind of nice, the little floaty funny ones. And then you'd come up with some that are malevolent and evil and they're, you know, so it all fits with this meta narrative that's being woven together by these encounters. But it's also just interesting to me that the mask slips and it's like the hatred of the image of God.
Hatred of man, yeah.
Still comes through from time to time with these encounters.
But then the objection to that is, well, you see it that way because you're a Christian. And so you are coming to the table with this presupposed like human-centeredness of the universe, to which we would say like, well, yeah. And here's the thing. By the skeptic's own admission, you actually have no hard physical evidence that there's any life off of Earth.
No.
None. Physical life. So that objection kind of falls flat on its face because you have to, based on the material evidence, also have a human-centered view of the cosmos.
And the thing is, like, people need to be aware of this. Christians need to be equipped for this because it's going to continue happening. Disclosure, government involvement in UFO and spiritual phenomena. It's going to continue to happen, and it's going to continue to happen in a way that is often conducted by dark spiritual forces who are at work in aiming to deceive. So this whole like, oh, there's this strange object hurtling towards Earth, and it has these characteristics that seem non-natural, and so it must be a spaceship that's coming here. And this is going to come out like about December or so, 2025. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we continued to see things like that in the headlines continually, and maybe even large-scale disclosure events or things like that. And the warning is, just don't be deceived.
Right. Because
deceptions are by their nature often compelling. There are going to be things that seem compelling that want to suck you into this hole, and just don't go there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if even within a year, we saw like a major kind of false flag event. Yeah, with a UFO coming to Earth, multiple governments
confirming,
recognizing like, oh wow, extraterrestrial life. This is a big deal. What do we do? And yeah, the answer is the same as it's always been. Like, you actually know the truth already, and it doesn't change. So if you see something that doesn't line up with the truth of God, you're just like, oh well, that's a lie. It doesn't really matter how it's done.
It's funny too that a lot of the original first wave extraterrestrial high strangeness UFO investigators like Jacques Vallée and Keel, a lot of them ended up coming to the conclusion of these are spiritual beings.
Yeah, interdimensional spiritual
They're extra-dimensional, interdimensional. There's some kind of spiritual element. Basically, by the time they're done describing it, spiritual component to these things. And it's the same phenomenon that we're seeing in ancient religious documents, ancient religious experiences and practices, shamanistic practices, and these sorts of things.
Even going back to the some are from the Pleiades and some are from Orion's belt and what. That is ancient celestial worship.
Exactly.
It's literally no different.
It wasn't, the ancients didn't think they were worshiping burning balls of gas in the sky.
No.
They were worshiping entities.
They were worshiping entities that came to them from those places.
Yes.
It's no different. So, keep a ready sword. Now, before we go into the next set of stories, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy these incredibly well done ads.
They're art.
Yeah, put it in the Louvre. If you skip these ads, you're the ATF. You love to kill dogs.
You just love to kill dogs. And if you're a patron, you're not going to be listening to these ads. You're going to be enjoying this story right now.
Right now.
Mount Athos Performance is a family-owned fitness brand that gives you the tools you need to cultivate a lifestyle of health and fitness. Bro, you know I'm doing an ad right now, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you're doing great, man. Keep it up. Keep it up.
But can you stop shaking the bottle just for a minute?
Oh, wait. You want me to stop shaking my Mount Athos Performance Shaker bottle filled with Mount Athos Performance Protein?
Yes, that would be great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Well, as I was saying, Mount Athos sources their goat whey from their family-owned farm so they can create a product that's not full of crazy chemicals or additives.
Oh, yeah, dude. You can tell this is the good stuff. I'm drinking this goat so that I can get goated. Oh, yeah.
Well, they have products like protein powder, creatine, supplements for your mind. There should be one for sleep somewhere. Head to athosperform.com and use code NCP20 for 20% off your order today.
On October 11th, 1973, a phone rang in the sheriff's office in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Hello? We just had something real weird happen. A UFO, I think. I don't know, but we could really use some help. Where? Oh, we're just sitting at the North City limit. Yeah. We'll just wait for you here.
2 sheriff's deputies responded and found a newer car with 2 men inside, 45-year-old Charles Hickson and 17-year-old Calvin Parker. They shined flashlights through the windows and the men rolled them down. The deputies immediately saw the fear etched on the men's faces, an image of despair shared by both young and old. They asked the pair to follow them back to the office for questioning. Charlie and Calvin agreed, and the caravan set off, rolling through the silent, dark coastal night. The ocean spray, normally a comforting thing, echoed with the sound of hollow loneliness. At the station, the deputies ushered the shaken men into separate rooms. The pair looked disoriented, almost drunken, but the deputies sensed it wasn't alcohol. They couldn't really smell much alcohol on them. Something else was at work here. Captain Glenn Ryder entered each room in turn and recorded both men's stories. This is what they told him. The workday ended at 5 p.m. for Charlie and Calvin. Both men worked at the shipyard. Despite the massive age gap between the two, they were actually close friends. You see, Calvin's father had been friends with Charlie, and Calvin grew up playing with Charlie's son after school. But with Charlie's son away in the Marines and Calvin's father retired a few towns over, the 2 men found a nostalgic and easy friendship in one another. An unlikely pair, but they got along well. By 5:45, they were climbing into Calvin's car, headed for a secret fishing spot on the Pascagoula River. They parked near the river around 6 and began the short but difficult trek to the water. For a secret spot, it wasn't very scenic or untouched. Trash from flash floods and careless littering piled along the roadside, and thick weeds guarded the way to the bank. Charlie and Calvin struggled through these natural and nasty fences, careful not to snag their hooks on anything. Finally, once at the bank, they paused to take in the charm of the delta and the fast fading light. Before long, it was fully dark, but a full moon and clear sky gave them in plenty of light to cast by. A couple of hours passed with no luck. Calvin figured it was time to move on. He'd heard of another spot not far away and was eager to try it. He looked over at Charlie and started to laugh before even mentioning leaving. You see, the old man had a fish on, probably a redfish in that area. But just as Calvin turned toward him, Charlie's line went slack. The fish had stolen the bait, leaving nothing but a wet hook. Charlie cursed in frustration and then joined in Calvin in just laughing it off. But at the tail end of that laughter, everything changed all at once. Their lives were about to change forever, in fact. Charlie turned to look for more bait in the tackle box behind him. As he did, he noticed flashing blue lights up near Calvin's car. Calvin saw him too. Both assumed the police had stopped there for some reason, and though they were innocent and sober, nerves crept in. Without a word, they pushed through the brush toward the road as quickly as they could. Evidently, their thinking was that going to meet the police freely would lead to a better outcome. But when they emerged onto the road, they froze. The flashing blue lights were not from a police cruiser. Some 30 or 40 yards away, a craft hovered above the ground. It pulsed with deep blue light as though it were alive, bioluminescent. A living ship with an unknown sentience. Charlie glanced at Calvin, and the boy was transfixed. His face betrayed a mixture of horror and wonder. Charlie couldn't move. The lights grew brighter until the glare was too strong for normal eyes. It felt like staring into the sun, and they wanted to shut their eyes, to turn away, but they couldn't. Their minds screamed at their bodies to move, but the bodies refused. Then, in a terrible twist of fate, the craft opened. Pearl white light flooded their vision, casting away the blue. And at first, it seemed relieving. The white light wasn't aggressive or harsh like the blue light was, and a thick haze surrounded the opening. And within that opening, the men discerned the silhouettes of three beings stepping from the craft. Instinct and intellect aligned in a moment. They must be afraid. And they were afraid. Every fiber of their humanity recoiled, but still, they couldn't move. Their feet were rooted to the ground. Panic overtook them as the three beings floated closer. Note well, the monsters did not walk, but flew, reaching the men in less than 2 breaths. Their appearance was eldritch and Lovecraftian. Beneath open cloaks of unknown material, Charlie glimpsed ungodly forms. Gray, wrinkled skin, hanging like a poor-fitting suit on sexless bodies. The faces were dark and inhuman, thin slits for mouths, no noses, eyes buried in folds of rotting flesh, and ears like drooping horns. A grotesque corruption of the human form. Their legs were shapeless cylinders of dark flesh. Their arms were too long, too slender, capped with lumps of flesh like crab claws. 2 of those claws seized Charlie, and then one grabbed Calvin. At their touch, the men went from stiff to limp, utterly paralyzed. For the duration of their stay in the craft, they fought to move, but they never did. They were borne through the air as if by magic, carried by the will of the monsters. The extent of their torment once inside the vessel, as far as they remember, was actually not physical. In fact, at separate moments, each received a telepathic assurance that they were meant no harm, and the message seemed truthful. Nonetheless, fear consumed them the entire time. They knew instinctively that they were supposed to be afraid. They were studied. Flying devices, half mechanical and half living, scanned them from head to toe repeatedly inside of the craft. They were moved from room to room for no apparent reason. Other beings that looked more humanoid than the 3 captors, entered only to observe before leaving without saying or doing anything. And then, unceremoniously, it all just ended. Charlie was carried out of the craft. He saw Calvin already on the ground, near where they had been before. And the boy was catatonic, staring back at the ship, expressionless. Charlie, who was himself very weak, mustered the strength to shake his friend, practically his nephew, by the shoulders. Calvin responded with sudden shrieking, begging for it to stop. Tears streamed down his face, and he collapsed, screaming to the ground. Charlie tried to comfort him, assuring him that it was actually over. He hugged him, he prayed over him, and he tried to convince him that they would all be okay. As he did, a zipping sound tore through the air, and Charlie turned to see the craft had vanished. Eventually, Calvin did settle down. He came to, still rattled, but able to act somewhat normal. Neither man knew how long they had been captive. They stumbled back to the car and drove in silence toward town. Charlie pulled out a bottle of Jim Beam, taking a few big swigs just to slow his racing heart. Calvin refused the offer to join him. Eventually, with no idea what else to do, they called the sheriff's office from a payphone and waited for deputies to arrive. In the months and years that followed, both men stuck to their story with religious dedication. They didn't seek attention, though Charlie was always willing to give interviews when asked. And to their deaths, both men stood by the tenor of their encounter being one of total and absolute malice, despite the messages that had been put in their minds to the contrary. They never stopped being terrified of the monsters that took them.
Truly horrors beyond comprehension.
Yeah. And
For
not
these poor
man-made.
guys. Not man-made. I was going to say man-made, but no, these are definitely made by demons.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more. So this is an example of like the combination of malevolence with other strange little sprinkles, like the messages in their mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have an idea about that.
Let's hear it.
I don't know the religious background of either of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is that they both lived their entire lives deep in the Bible Belt. Mm-hmm. And part of me wonders if there's almost this like kind of covenant blessing. Maybe this is like way off base. This is wild speculation. I haven't thought about it until literally just now. But
Perfect.
But part of me wonders if maybe there's kind of this latent, covenant blessing where overall that region had a history of being quite faithful in their attempts to serve the Lord up to that time.
Yeah.
And that means that the lines that these men are coming from are godly lines. Whether or not they were is, again, something that I don't know. But I almost wonder if at some level, just because it was the water they were swimming in culturally, they had some kind of sense of what should be and what should not be. Mm-hmm. And even if they weren't consciously thinking about it, that's why they were so convinced that it was bad.
Yeah.
And that's why they were so, like, their minds were so firm on being afraid the whole time.
Yeah.
Even when they were getting these telepathic messages of peace and like, and the thing is, when you read the accounts that these guys write, when they talk about the messages of peace, they were like, no, it seemed sincere. And at the end of the day, they didn't get physically harmed to either of their knowledge unless they blacked out and literally, and they've been put under hypnosis, which is not good, but they didn't have any memories of physical harm come up in that time. So they're talking about these telepathic messages. They're talking about how sincere they seemed, that genuinely they weren't meaning any harm. They were just trying to observe and like run some quick tests. And yet at the same time, they're like, but it was bad. Like it was all bad. And Calvin, especially the younger man, his reaction was just visceral.
Yeah.
So Charlie was a little bit older. He had served in Vietnam. Like he had seen some stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe he's a little bit more hardened in a good way to that type of stressful event. Calvin wasn't.
Right.
And I think that you see kind of the insistence on being afraid in his reaction, where he was catatonic for a while. Once the craft left, it seemed like he was almost released. But it took him a long time to settle down. Like it reminded me a lot actually of the incident at Devil's Den.
Yeah.
Where, what's his name? The main guy.
Well, they used pseudonyms.
That's right. But the main guy, whatever.
And his friend.
He woke up and he didn't, like he was sore and stuff, but he wasn't quite rattled.
He was a little bit more in his right mind.
But Toby, the guy
the
who
friend.
went by Toby, he was immediately like weeping.
Yeah.
And then he became a drunkard. Like
His wife left him.
couldn't cope. And then he ended up dying on the side of the road somewhere.
Yeah,
Like,
it was just like a horrible, sad ending.
so
Never
it
recovered.
It reminded me a lot of that. Difference being, praise God, that Calvin didn't have that kind of downturn. He ended up leading a fairly normal life.
And that story, just in case, there was a series of Dusty Tomes we actually released in the main feed a while
It was like
ago.
a 5-part.
Yeah. But that was a story of a man and his friend who were in the military. And long story short, they got this idea to go camping that almost seemed like put in their minds, because it was like where they went was way far away. There were lots of camping places near them. They had never really been camping. They drove all the way to the Devil's Den State Park, I think is what it was
Devil's
called.
Den State Park.
They like went through barriers.
Off trail.
like all the way back to this one mountain. It was like they almost were called there.
Yeah.
They didn't take any of this a lot of equipment that they thought like a really nice camera and all this stuff, almost like they forgot it on purpose.
They got there and went on a hike and they had missing time
They
on the
like
hike.
fell asleep in this really weird way and then came back, and ultimately they experienced, in their retelling, an abduction story, had like sunburn all over their body.
Radiation.
ended up getting taken back to the camp, went back. They were put in the military hospital. They had some like, not men in black necessarily so much as just military interviews. And the interesting thing was they claimed that on the ship, there were people with military insignia, humans, in league with these beings. And there was like a mantis creature.
They got told to separate and never talk to one another again. They were best friends. And the guy actually disobeyed that order and he almost got court-martialed.
Yeah.
Like, they were very serious. Anyway, fascinating story, tragic story. But very fascinating.
But similar
some
in
parallels
the
here.
2 men involved in it. But this one was a little bit different in that Calvin, like these 2 men, they didn't have the same meltdown, but Calvin certainly had a more visceral reaction.
Yeah.
And seemed more affected by it.
Yeah.
In the moment.
Charlie, the thing about Charlie, age helps, you know, and also his history of being, he was in Vietnam and he had like been through crazy stuff, but he was well adjusted, like to function. And I think that really helped him just compartmentalize these things.
Right.
But when it got down to brass tacks and he would talk about it, he would say like, no, this was awful.
It was awful.
Like, it was awful. I hated it. I hate thinking about it. But he was willing to not deny interviews. It was kind of that thing again. Calvin, on the other hand, totally fell off the public grid. Like, he did not want anything to do with it publicly until much later in his life. He kind of wrote an autobiography about it, which is one of the things that I read in preparation for the show. And he talks about it very soberly, but in the same way that lingering fear has never gone away, where it's just this, I don't know much, but I am certain that these things were out for my bad.
I wonder what would have happened if they'd called upon the name of the Lord.
I know. Yeah.
And by the end of this episode, we'll find out what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have an answer
when we
for
do
that.
I think we should go quickly into the next story because we have this theme that's saying peace, peace to you. There's like this telepathic communication, and in the next story, this gets amplified to 11.
Yeah.
I mean, and you start to see some of the nefarious spiritual and religious messaging that is so woven together in this alleged extraterrestrial phenomena. It's like, it is clear. This is where we get so much confidence that this is a demonic or spiritual event and that it is a spiritual deception, because these things don't just come at saying we're biological creatures from another planet. They come with religious messaging.
Yeah.
Before we do that, though, unless you are a supporter of the show, we're going to take a minute and hear from some more of our great sponsors. Just want to remind you that if you skip through these ads, I'm not going to say you'll be abducted by a demon, because that seems like it'd be a little bit much. But I will say that if you skip through these ads and don't pay rapt attention to the glorious artwork that is our ads, then every time you try to zip up your pants after you go to the bathroom, your fingernail is going to get caught in the zipper and kind of like break a little bit. And that's probably just going to be mildly annoying for you. So we'll hear from our great sponsors and then we'll jump into another story. I've been having a problem with my friend Ben.
That's raw Ben nationalist to you.
I'm sorry, my friend Raw Ben Nationalist. See, he doesn't trust those big box soap companies with all their nasty chemicals.
That's right. Gotta keep my T levels high.
Right, which has led him to do things like not shower for days at a time. But luckily, I just got some of that new Indigo Sundry soap.
Ew, keep that away from me.
No, Ben, this soap is different. It's made from all natural ingredients and none of that nasty, harmful stuff. And so now my friend Raw Ben Nationalist here.
That's Mr. Sir Reginald Ben Esquire III. Thank you very much.
So now Mr. whatever his name is can shower in confidence. And so can you if you head to indigosundrysoap.com and pick yours up today. And hey, if you subscribe to any of their bundles or soaps, you get an automatic 10% off all your orders.
Delightful.
Okay. Before the terrible encounters we've explored thus far, hundreds of people claimed encounters of another sort, with beings of potentially another kind. In the lull between the Great Wars from 1918 to 1939, these claimants were supposedly visited by beings more analogous to the gods of myth than anything else. They were tall and attractive, even by human standards. Their long, blonde, white, or black hair, fair skin, radiant eyes, frames of ideal proportion, and affectionate tone, coupled with a hopeful message for humanity, left an overwhelmingly positive impression on those they contacted. These beings were called the Space Brothers, an alien race closely akin to man who dwelt in the Pleiades star cluster. They were evolved, almost transcendent, and came only to help man evolve to be more like them. Their gospel found fertile soil among the syncretist mystics of the age. Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy, claimed contact with these beings. She called them the masters of ancient wisdom, or ascended masters. She said they once lived on Earth in places like Atlantis, Lemuria, Hyperborea, and Thule. Blavatsky was not alone. Other theosophists and Hermetic scholars claimed communion with the masters. They expanded her understanding, saying that the Pleiadians had come to warn us about the dangers of nuclear weapons, that they wanted to help us embrace a universal, syncretistic religion, that they would teach us how to ascend to a higher plane of existence, and that they alone could correct our faulty records of humanity's past. On this last point, the Space Brothers and their human prophets insisted the Bible in particular was wrong. It was the masters who made man, not some transcendent God. Moreover, many of the beings claimed to be the ascended versions of biblical saints, such as Adam, Moses, Elijah, and even Jesus Christ. All new strains of occultism resulted from this. The Aetherius Society in England, the Unarius Academy of Science in California, the Ashtar Command across the globe, all accepted their message and staked their own and their followers' lives on it. To them, it was a matter of religio-scientific faith. To some today, it still is. But the question is this: are the stories true? Not the story told by the masters, but the story told by their human agents. Did people really encounter such beings and such deceivers? Well, we would say maybe yes and maybe no. But assuming they were not all lying, one account stands out from the rest in its significance: the account of Orfeo Angelucci. Born in 1912 in Trenton, New Jersey, Orfeo Angelucci's childhood was marked by both the blessing of affluence and the curse of chronic illness. As a young boy, Orfeo was plagued by a parasite that caused chronic fatigue, malnutrition, and stunted muscle and bone growth. Though his family fought it as best they could, the disease eventually ended Orfeo's formal schooling in the 9th grade, at which point he was homeschooled and placed on a strict bed rest for a full year. Though unfortunate, this turn of events gave Orfeo a new normal that he greatly enjoyed. The flexibility of homeschool allowed him to focus on the subjects he loved the most, chiefly the sciences. What's more, the year of rest did serve his body well. His health noticeably improved, and he was able to lead a more routine childhood. He was still small for his age and constantly tired, but he could, with great effort, be a somewhat normal homeschooled high schooler. Later in adolescence, the fortune of the Angelucci family took a downturn. This forced Orfeo to work as a sales representative for his uncle's flooring company. But the young man was never one to grow sullen at hardship. He was thrilled to begin making his own way in the world, and he proved quite good at it. Before long, he was a seasoned salesman and a responsible citizen. He changed jobs here and there, got married, had 2 sons. He even bought a house. Everything was working out nicely for the man many thought would never leave the care of his parents. By 1952, Orfeo and his budding family were living near Burbank, California. He was working on the assembly line at Boeing, switching between day and swing shifts. He remained a good worker and proved a reliable head of household. His children loved him, and his wife admired him. They were happy days. But much like the better seasons of his early life, these days were numbered. Just after midnight on May 23rd of that year, Orfeo got in his car and drove out of the Boeing parking lot. He felt especially weak that night, something he blamed on the changing air pressure and a busy shift, so he was eager to get home and get into bed. As he drove, his condition worsened. He worried he was about to suffer a major setback in his health, though he knew this was likely an overreaction. He tried to quiet his anxiety. Just before crossing the bridge over the LA River, he considered stopping at a gas station for just a small cup of coffee. He wasn't sleepy, but kind of drowsy and groggy in body and mind. His peripheral vision seemed cloudy, and his hearing was off. and the sparse sounds of late-night traffic were muffled and distant. He assumed coffee would help him get home. But some instinct he couldn't explain, one he later wondered about, kept him from turning into the gas station. He simply could not make his arms turn the wheel that way. It wasn't paralysis, but just a kind of quiet certainty. So he continued on to the bridge. There he watched the night world around him begin to glow in a golden hour haze. It was the strangest thing. He had never seen such coloration before and wondered at its cause. Seconds later, he got his answer. Ahead of him, a red orb hovered, bobbing gently in the wind. The orb was like a lighthouse, barely noticeable one moment and the brightest object around the next. Orfeo could not help but be drawn to it. He tried to approach, but it just always stayed the same distance ahead. Just as he began to wonder if the orb was a trick of his malady, it turned and drifted down a lonely dirt road on the opposite bank of the river. Orfeo stopped at the intersection, considered what to do. He watched its radiance grow, captivated. Suddenly, its shape became more and more defined in his vision. It was as if all of the sensory strangeness that he was experiencing was clearing at the object's command. Then, in the very next moment, a new sensation struck him. His arms and legs tingled as if electrified. He decided to go off-road and follow the orb. He drove slowly over the washboard gravel. After about a mile, the orb made another move, swinging down an embankment off the right side of the road and coming to rest a few feet above an open field. Orfeo rolled his car back off the track and parked in the chaparral. He stared into the field. The orb, as if impatient, pulsated with greater intensity before shooting off into the night sky. Its acceleration was lightning fast. Halfway to the moon's position, it stopped. Hanging still like a beacon, it then shot westward at an incredible rate of speed. Soon, it was gone. Orfeo thought it was over, but only for a moment. In his next breath, he saw two smaller green lights descending from the very point in the sky where the red orb had stopped. They floated down, delicate but controlled, until they hovered mere feet from Orfeo's car. He stared from the driver's seat at two spheres, 3 feet wide, glowing brilliant opalescent green. Then, to his dread and delight, a voice entered his head. The voice was masculine, strong, and crystal clear. It was neither loud nor soft, neither commanding nor meek, and it spoke perfect English. "Don't be afraid, Orfeo. We are friends." It told him to exit his car and approach the lights. Orfeo did so with some struggle. His body was still weak. He steadied himself by leaning on the hood. He recalled feeling no fear whatsoever. The voice called him by name. It told him he was speaking to beings from another world, that he had been watched and studied since childhood. As it went on, Orfeo felt a growing peace, and then, "Drink from the cup you will find on your car, Orfeo." He turned and was shocked to see a crystal chalice sitting on the hood. It refracted the green light magnificently. He tasted it, found it euphoric, and drank the rest in a single gulp. Instantly, all of the unpleasantness in his body vanished. For the first time in his life, he felt whole and strong. Suddenly, between the two lights appeared flashing images of paradise on another world. These visions struck Orfeo to the core, paralyzing him in wonder. The display ended on a moving image of two humanoid beings, symbols of perfection. Every detail was lovely, every line attractive, every curve and limb just as it ought to be. The two beings looked at him and smiled. Orfeo believed they were real, that they were somewhere, somehow, actually seeing him as he was. In a rush of telepathic energy, the beings told him everything there was to know about himself, even things he could not have known. Where others might have felt violated, Orfeo, though taken aback, felt only relief. When the images faded, the two green orbs remained. Then the voice spoke again. It told him he was chosen, selected as a prophet of the good news they had come to bring. They said they loved the earth and its people because of an ancient kinship with it. Humanity, they warned, stood at the precipice of either ascension or disaster. Its fate lay in its own hands, but only humility and obedience to the cosmic law of universal love and wisdom could save it. Orfeo, they said, would lead the charge in this pacifist crusade against mankind's barbaric thoughts and emotions. In conclusion, a force of warmth and total delight enveloped Orfeo like a swimmer swallowed by clear water. He felt a happiness in that moment that was never matched again. And then came the farewell. We'll contact you again, Orfeo. But for now, friend, it is good night. He drove home and fell into his wife's arms. She had been up late, worried about his tardiness. She asked why he was so pale. He told her he would explain in the morning, then went to bed, though he had great trouble falling asleep. In the years that followed, Orfeo Angelucci dedicated his strength to spreading the message of his extra-dimensional friends. He claimed to have ridden in one of their crafts, to have seen a mothership behind the moon, and to have orbited the Earth. He believed until his death that he had once lived in the body of one of these superhuman beings, experiencing firsthand the bliss of life on the elevated plane of the cosmos. He wrote books, gave lectures, spoke at conferences, and gave countless interviews. In all of it, his fervor for the gospel of the Space Brothers never waned. In the late 1950s, his case was taken up by the renowned psychoanalyst Carl Jung during Jung's research on flying saucers as a modern myth of the collective unconscious. Jung, of course, did not buy into the literal truth of Orfeo's claims, but he said of him, as with every other myth, that the claims were based on something very real he had somehow seen, even if only in the deep wells of the unconscious.
Orfeo Angelucci.
That's a made-up name. I refuse to believe that's his name.
Orfeo is a really cool name.
But it's ruined now forever.
Orfeo.
Or is it?
Or is it? Orfeo is like the high fairy in, he's Sir Orfeo, and I think one of Edmund Spenser's works, but I can't remember.
I called him Orfeo the whole time.
Really?
Orfeo Angelucci.
That just goes to show that while Brian was reading that, I was not in the room. I was elsewhere.
This guy be wildin'.
So
these ascended masters be wildin'.
the story speaks for itself.
It really does. Like, what commentary do listeners of Haunted Cosmos need? You know what we're gonna say,
Right. And the thing is, appearing as an angel of light, presenting a false gospel, and that just is what it is.
It's almost like it's right there in the Bible.
It's almost like it's right there in the Bible. One thing that I think is interesting is how the people who were big, like Blavatsky, some of the other Hermetic type folks, were claiming communication with these same exact beings from the same star system. And again, it goes back to the celestial worship thing. And you see how, like, this isn't new. It's a common thread that kind of repicks itself up.
We just have like a
throughout
technological little twist on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in this way, like, it got mainstream because of the Space Brother proponents that were, living in the desert and doing all this stuff in the 1950s. But it's always been there. Like, it's been just a lingering thing in kind of the esoteric, mystic world.
By the way, you know The Bird and the Baby, the Eagle and Child, the famous pub where the Inklings met.
Yes.
You got Tolkien, you got Lewis, but you've also got
Owen Barfield.
Known
Theosophist.
Theosophist. And so what's crazy to me, and this is all similar time period, what's crazy to me is that that they had some Haunted Cosmos type conversations.
We should have been
The Bird and Baby.
Should have been there.
Because Barfield's like, no, listen, like, the Ascended Masters. And Lewis and Tolkien are like, shut up.
And Lewis is like, Santa Claus.
so anyway, Santa Claus in Narnia.
No, I like to think that Lewis and Tolkien were constantly arguing with each other, because they clearly were always arguing with each other.
They're like a Roman Catholic and a Protestant.
And I like
all of it.
And I like to think that they're arguing about Santa Claus being in Narnia.
Yeah.
And Owen Barfield's like, guys, let me tell you something Blavatsky said recently. And they just stare at him. And then just go back to their conversation.
He's like, no, it's all in the Pleiades.
And dude, the Pleiadians are just here to help us, dog.
They're here to help us.
Turns out Jesus was one of them.
No.
Tolkien's like, I will literally kill you.
I will kill you.
And speaking a Latin right as I do it.
You know that, like, the mouth of Sauron is like Owen Barfield. It's like, it's just like 1-to-1. So Tolkien.
So the things to keep in mind are that this is nothing new.
It's nothing new.
And I think it's one of those interesting kind of examples of, once you see it in one place, you kind of start seeing it everywhere. And you see how it's just re-echoed through history. Like, mythologies are this.
It's even LDS, Islam, the Ascended Masters in Theosophy. It's all the same. This angelic being showed up to me and he was like, hey, everybody got it kind of right, kind of wrong, but I'm here to fix everything. And you're a special chosen prophet. You're going to be the guy who's going to tell them all.
You can marry all the 12-year-old girls you want.
Dude, guess what? It's all, you can do anything. They all belong to you.
Jesus came here from planet Goldie Zone and he was riding a spaceship shaped like a pizza.
You'll never believe what
Mormons literally believe that.
And then like all the prophets, they come back in the room and they're like, guys, you are never going to believe this. Guess what?
And as much
all
as
of you are now married to me.
Like going back to the Waco thing.
Yeah.
As much as I want to be somewhat charitable to these followers, I really do have a hard time.
I know.
Because at some point,
you got to take responsibility.
You're dumb.
You got to take responsibility.
Fool me once, shame
on you.
Shame on you. Whoops. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Actually, shame on me again. Okay. Fool me 4 times, shame back on you because you're clearly picking on a vulnerable
You're just taking advantage.
Fool me 5 times.
Like this video if you've seen this reel.
Fool me 5 times, shame back on me because I may be vulnerable, but at some point you got to take some personal responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fool me 6 times.
You got to stop.
You have fallen into my trap.
You cannot do the whole bit. You can't do the whole bit. It's not your bit.
I just did. That is like some Australian comedian.
It's actually hilarious.
I don't know his name, but he's really funny.
Yeah. Everybody knows what we're going to say. Don't listen to the Space Brothers when they give you weird esoteric visions and tell you that they may or may not be Jesus Christ. Just don't.
Yeah. Don't
what
do
you
it.
should do in that situation is go a little Kelly Hopkinsville on them.
Hey, I
think you know what I mean.
Speaking of stories we've already told in this episode.
Yeah.
In the Pascagoula River one, the craft is glowing blue. And I meant to bring this up and I forgot to.
I know what you're going to say.
It reminded me from the recent episode of the Graveyard Shift, where an anonymous listener talked about a DMT trip wherein
mushrooms, but cannabis.
Yeah, but hey,
We don't do drugs.
I'm not a doctor. Where this like being who glowed blue was leading them to this big blue light that was supposed to be God.
It was like God.
And I thought of that parallel.
It's
and
all blue.
I meant to say it. You're wearing a blue shirt. That is demonic.
This is more of a turquoise,
Sir,
I would say.
That is demonic.
I would say this is more of a turquoise.
The cover of our book is blue, and that is simply an outrage. Blue's demon.
I'm blue.
Dabba dee, dabba die.
So I think we've really now at this point clarified that if you encounter such a being, what you should do is rebuke it in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And if you have a firearm, draw on it.
Yes. Both are great.
The firearm will not be effective. The name of the Lord Jesus Christ will, but it adds a little sauce. It lets them know like, absolutely not.
The firearm is for aura farming purposes.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is totally great.
Totally
in
fine.
This situation.
If you want to do a little aura farming while you're
What's
like
wrong with
rebuking
that?
in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, you do you.
What's wrong with that?
You know what I'm saying?
Let me just kind of prime the pump for this hot close then and say, if you want more proof that A, this is demonic, and that B, the proper response is to rebuke the demons in the name of Jesus Christ, then this hot close is just for you.
Yeah.
Because that is what we are going to get into.
I think it's
Thank you
time.
guys for listening to the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. We appreciate all your support. Lets us continue to make this show possible. All of our wonderful supporters and friends, listeners. Hey guys, you know, every time we release an episode, you say in the comments, particularly on YouTube, you say, it's amazing that Haunted Cosmos only has 50,000 followers, subscribers. They should have millions. YouTube must be censoring them. You know what it is? It's that you guys aren't sharing this with enough people.
Ooh. I also think it's
you.
because YouTube is nerfing us.
I want you to sit there in that for a minute, in the knowledge that it's that it's a you problem. Okay. We can't blame it on the government elites manipulating algorithms like YouTube to keep our unveiling of their plots from reaching the masses. But it's no. We're not going to blame it on that, guys. This is your fault. Okay? Share this with your friends. Let it become your whole personality. I want to say that the message today is not balance. It is Haunted Cosmos is now your whole personality.
Hey,
Okay? You're welcome.
Anyway, thank you all for your constant support and love, and we'll see you guys next time. In 1989, a man named Ronnie drove home from a night out with his brother and nephew. It was rural Alabama near the end of the summer. They started home around 10:05 p.m. and made only 2 stops during the 20-mile drive. One to grab a snack at the gas station, and one to pee in the weeds off the road when somebody just couldn't hold it any longer. All in, the trio figured they would arrive home at 10:35 or 10:40 at the latest. That's what their families expected too. You can therefore imagine the men's surprise when they eventually did arrive home. For even before they stopped the car, Ronnie's sister-in-law ran out of the house nearly in tears, asking, "What took you so long? I've been worried sick." The 2 older men froze. The kid just looked bewildered. They asked her what she was talking about. "It's 12:30 in the morning," she cried. "You should have been home 2 hours ago." The men checked their watches and the clock in the car. Both of them read 10:40. Inside, though, every clock in the house agreed with the wife. It was well past midnight. Everyone was confused, no doubt about that. But when the first wave of shock and stress pass from a situation and leave only fatigue in its place, people tend to do what people often do. They reconcile the nonsense just enough to go to sleep. And soon, the house was quiet. Unsettled, but quiet. The next morning, though, Ronnie sat up and swung his legs off the side of the bed, and as he pulled on his socks, he noticed something: a small pink scar on his ankle. As he checked the other ankle, he found another scar that matched the first, and he had never seen those scars before, and he thought them curious. But ultimately, he dismissed them. After all, they were very small. Days later, Ronnie recalled a vivid dream in which he was experimented on by tall beings. They bore a faint likeness to humans, but in his dream, he knew they were not men. Months after these strange events, Ronnie moved his family into a new rental house. It was perfect for the outdoorsy Southern gentleman, secluded but still a short enough drive to town, surrounded by forest, and overlooking the Tennessee River from the edge of a rock bluff. Once there, he set to work clearing overgrown trees that blocked the view from the back porch to the river. One old cherry tree gave him particular trouble. Not only did it block most of the view, but it was also tangled up with other trees, making it harder to bring down. Still, Ronnie worked for hours until finally he was ready for the tree to fall. Unfortunately, he hadn't noticed one other major way in which the tree was bound, a way he still doesn't understand to this day, but that's beside the point. Instead of falling cleanly, the tree stopped after about only 20 degrees of its fall. Ronnie, therefore, rigged up something that he thought would keep him safe and began cutting the trunk into smaller sections. He should have been more careful, though, because the first cut he made was a nightmare. A massive chunk of wood swung back and struck him square in the chest, breaking several ribs on his left side. The weeks of recovery that followed were torture. The soreness was constant, but there were other troubles as well. Ronnie, you see, was a heavy smoker, which meant that he coughed very frequently. And with broken ribs, coughing was unbearable, but he really had no choice. Holding it back risked filling his lungs with phlegm and developing pneumonia. It was a lose-lose situation, but Ronnie chose pain over illness and tried to suffer his way through it as best he can. But this proved impossible. By the end of each workday, he could neither stand nor lie down comfortably. At night, the bed only brought pain, forcing him to sleep in the family recliner in the living room. His kids missed dinner with him, and his wife hardly saw him outside the earliest hours of the morning. And the reason all these details matter is because late one night during this miserable period of recovery, Ronnie woke from a light sleep and hobbled down the hallway to the bathroom. When he was halfway there, he was startled by a piercing whistle, followed by a loud whirring sound outside. The windows were open since it was early spring. At first, he thought it might be a strange thunderclap, but when he looked out the hallway window and saw clear skies, he dismissed that idea. Maybe he had imagined it, maybe he was half dreaming. But the dogs were barking maniacally in the yard, and that put the suspicion of dreaming also to rest. Whatever it was, it sounded big and unlike anything he'd ever heard. And the sound was so loud that it shook off the last of his drowsiness. And so, Ronnie walked on into the bathroom, careful with his ribs, fully alert. Once there, he closed the door and felt a cough rising in his chest. Bracing for the agony, he wrapped his arms tightly across his ribs and let it out, muted so as to not wake the family. He winced in anticipation, but he felt nothing. He looked down and coughed again, still no pain. He coughed harder, over and over, throwing himself into the cough, and he felt no pain at all. Then he noticed a small hole in his shirt, directly over the injured section of ribs. As he examined it, he saw that it was perfectly round, and its edges were slightly singed, as if burned. He thought it a strange thing indeed. He marveled at this even more than at the missing time weeks before, which now seemed like a distant memory. Only in the days that followed did he begin to wonder whether those things and the strange sound he'd heard over his house might all somehow be connected. One morning, Ronnie's daughter walked into the kitchen an hour later than usual. She looked tired. Her mother asked what was wrong, and the daughter calmly stated that she'd been kept awake by the men outside her bedroom the previous night. They had flashlights, she said, flashlights that went through the curtains and lit up the room. I could see the men walking around outside. Of course, this would be alarming enough on its own, but another wrinkle in the layout of the girl's room made it all the more eerie. The only window in her room was on the rear wall of the house, the one that hung out over the bluff. There was no way to, quote-unquote, walk around outside of that window, or so the family thought. The morning after this account from the daughter, Ronnie also found something strange when he saw his 8-year-old son sleeping just inside the threshold of the home's front door, and the door was cracked wide open. He lifted the boy up and gently shook him awake, and when the boy became lucid, he told his dad, again, very calmly, how he had gotten there. "Little men let me out of my room last night and walked me outside to their ship. Don't you remember, Daddy? We passed you. You were sitting up on the couch just staring at us. I called for you, but you didn't answer. Your eyes, they were all white." The boy went on to say that after giving him a tour of the ship, the little men brought him back into the house just inside the door and then vanished. He fell asleep right then and there, overcome by a feeling of intense fatigue. As these strange afflictions struck the children, Ronnie's wife also confessed to her husband that she had a recurring nightmare that kept her from sleeping. She dreamed of beings that tried to mimic humans, taking her to another place. Nothing ever happened once she was there, but she dreaded both the place and the beings. All of these things continued off and on for months until a new phenomenon hit the home: lights. Over the course of years, the family developed a nightly habit of standing on the back porch to watch lights of different colors and shapes zip around their home and in the air above the valley beneath them. On multiple occasions, Ronnie even saw the lights fly into the river and then back out again. They never made any noise, and while at first the family thought them sporadic, they later realized the movements were oddly mechanical, despite defying the known capabilities of aircraft at the time. A light would drift slowly towards the home, before shooting straight into the sky faster than a bullet in a half second. Another light would fly across the valley, around the opposing mountain, and back to their bluff, a distance of 12 miles, mind you, in less than 30 seconds. When it returned, it stopped on a dime. A few times, the family was woken by the sound of helicopters in the morning. They would file out onto the porch and watch what looked like black Apache helicopters scanning the river below and the valley that they overlooked. The men in the helicopters never so much as glanced at them. After years of this torment, for the lights only ever made the family uneasy, and the other frightful events never fully ceased, Ronnie finally decided to move them all away, and fortunately when this happened, the activity stopped. But time proved that the damage had already been done. Ronnie and his wife eventually divorced. His daughter grew up and disowned her family. His son fell in with a bad group of friends, and his whereabouts are unknown to this day. The family broke into pieces, every man for himself. And Ronnie, who claims his family would at least agree with him on this, says that the fracturing only began when the abductions and UFOs reached their crescendo. This story is just one among hundreds that Christian UFO investigator Joseph Jordan has documented. Jordan's reason for immortalizing such sorrowful cases is not simply to perpetuate sadness. Instead, he wants to give people hope by pointing out a frequently overlooked pattern in these accounts. Unfortunately, Ronnie's hopeless case is an outlier among the many others. The general consensus, however, is far more victorious, and we'll get to that. In cases of serious UFO encounter and alien abduction, Jordan kept finding parallels that made the stories resemble those of a haunting, a possession, or demonic oppression, with only a different flavor to distinguish them. Noting this, and being a Christian man, he wondered what might happen if alien encounters were treated the same way the church treats those other things generally accepted as demonic. When he put the word out, the results stunned him and confirmed his hypothesis. If someone calls upon the name of Jesus during an abduction, the abduction stops. He therefore compiled story after story, ones that supported this thesis, and ones that showed what may happen if alien contact is not recognized as demonic in nature. Ronnie's story, as we've seen, is what results from a failure to fully reckon with the spiritual war that takes place when the heavens come down. But, as noted, it is an outlier to Joe Jordan's catalog. Most of his other stories inspire confidence in Christ and a deep sense of safety for those under the perfect care of the Most High God, and we would like to leave you with just one of those stories. Remember, as you go out into the wide world, you walk in the midst of a cosmic war. There is peril with every step in this life, but take heart. Your enemies fear the one to whom you belong. Scott Richardson struggles to remember a time before periodic paranormal experiences. Even as a boy, he claims sleep paralysis and out-of-body situations plagued him from time to time, though he didn't know how to categorize them in his youth. He could always tell that something bad was about to happen on any given night by the manner in which he fell asleep. Of course, by the time he noticed the sign, he was too close to deep sleep to do anything about it. This in itself is vicious and cruel. In a spiral toward dreamland, he would notice, with his final ounce of lucidity, a change in the sound his ceiling fan was making. It seemed to slow its spin into a thick, whooshing cadence. Every time he heard this, he was woken in the night, fully paralyzed and surrounded by beings of utter darkness. They'd howl in his ear, and they would observe his reaction. They would reach for him with terrible claw-like hands, but they would always fail to grab him. Still, each time they reached, they got closer. In every encounter, Scott eventually remembered to call upon the name of Christ his Savior in his mind, and when he thought to do this, the whole thing stopped immediately. Gone were the beings, gone was the darkness, and gone was the fear as well. This was relatively normal for him for years, but it wasn't until one fateful night that Scott thought to connect his unfortunate experience with the widespread UFO phenomena. He woke up and at first thought that he was just in a dream. This only lasted a few seconds, though, before he understood that it was something more than a dream. He was just too aware. He could pinch himself and feel the pain. He could sense everything around him with so much clarity. He could consider things, which he could never do in dreams before then. Moreover, though his senses were clear and his consciousness was free, he found that certain areas of the scene that greeted him were fuzzy or blotched out, as if something or someone outside of himself didn't want him to see those sections. This was uncanny and strange, but the actual scene was as follows. Scott stood in a semi-domed room with a cushioned seat following its curve. Above the seat was a great window. Scott looked out the window and saw only stars, but it was a map of stars unlike any he had seen on Earth. None of the familiar constellations were there, and there was no moon, and so he thought that maybe he was somewhere else in space. The seat itself was crowded with human beings, men in suits studying Scott and almost judging him. Many of their faces were obscured by the patches of fuzzy vision, but some were clear to him. He even recognized a few faces and knew them by name, but he never disclosed who they were in later retellings. The impression he got was that the men were not in charge of what was happening, but that they were somehow complicit in it to some degree. Suddenly, Scott moved to another room. It was sterile. A cold metal table stood at the center. He was standing on a walkway leading to the table, and recessed below the walkway were what appeared to be technicians. They looked human, but wrong, subdued to the point of being other things entirely. These drugged beings were in 3 groups, designated by different colored clothing, red, yellow, and blue. Standing beside the metal table was a terrible creature, elongated like a clay figurine stretched to the point of breaking. It was dark gray and faceless and wore a long cloak that was Vanta black. This being walked towards Scott, then turned to face a wall just before him. From there, it spoke to him. Scott turned away, and behind him he saw another group of subdued, human-like things. They wore gray clothes, and they sat elevated above the walkway, like a group of brain-dead observers in an operating theater. When he saw them, Scott's whole disposition shifted from curiosity to pure terror. He somehow knew that if he responded to the terrible creature's question, he would be selling himself to it, complicit in whatever evil it planned for him. He assumed that maybe he would end up like the things he was staring at, lifeless and caged, less than human. As he thought this, his feet started carrying him toward the observing party, but he didn't want to go there. He was afraid of them too. He feared joining them. He tried to stay his pace, but he was losing control of his body and mind. From there, he started to panic. He turned his head over his shoulder and saw the slender monster staring at him with an eyeless face and charcoal skin. Suddenly, into the commotion and confusion, an idea sprung to the forefront of Scott's mind. You must pray. But Scott didn't know what to pray. He was too turned around. He couldn't focus. He was overcome with the crippling fear. He therefore shouted the first Bible verse that came to mind. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And he followed this with desperate thoughts. Jesus, help me. Jesus, save me. And almost before the thought was complete, everything stopped. The terrible beings melted away. Scott had control of his body again. The fear faded, and he felt warm and comfortable. He sat up in his bed, still wide awake, breathing heavily but smiling, and he fell back into peaceful rest soon thereafter.
Mothman in disguise, wolfman in disguise, giant angel cries. We hear all the lies, moon-eyed children here to steal your soul. Bigfoot skinwalkers off from mind control.